Hey there, welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. Today we're going to talk about magic items. So, I mostly nowadays play in old school, style games where the overall magic level of the PCs is much lower. So, this means that if we want to bring magic into the game, magic items are usually the best way to do it. It's available, right? We can give them to the party. And one advantage I found with that is that because the DM is handing out magic items or making available magic items to the players, however you want to say it, they can kind of set the pace of the world or the system. Whereas in a game where the player characters by their nature have a lot of magic spells, it kind of establishes the world. So that means I can play multiple campaigns, let's say in BX Dungeons and Dragons, and I can play them at very different levels of magic without changing any of the core rules of the system. Right? If I give very few magic items, the nature of old school magic users having minimal spells, the clerics not even having spells on first level, will set up a very, very kind of low magic, if you will, world. Whereas if I hand out lots of magic items, then it creates a world where there's lots of magic. So typically somewhere in the middle is the best place to go, of course, like most things in life. And it's funny because this is one of the things I really noticed. So I think I've mentioned this before that I played when I was a kid, with my friend Steven. We were like 9 years old. We learned how to play with BX. And then I went away from D&D for a long time. And I came back with 5th edition and I really enjoyed it. And it was really exciting. But one of the things I did early on was because I didn't read all the books and I didn't really understand it as much. I had this kind of, I was playing the way that I played when I was a kid. I gave out a bunch of magic items at first. And then I realized that because they were kind of weak magic items, after a handful of levels, the characters didn't even want them. Like, their characters could do better stuff without the weak magic items I had given them. So it really put a different perspective on me thinking about magic items for a long time while I was running that edition of the game. Since I've gone back to OSR games, it's a little different, right? Because even a very minor bonus, like a sword that's +1, is actually a pretty big deal in a lot of these older systems, especially if you're playing original Dungeons and Dragons, where there's not even a hit or damage bonus for high strength or dexterity. Well, there's a hit bonus for dexterity, but anyways, so a +1 sword makes a big difference, right? So yeah, I mean, magic is different depending on the game you're playing. I'm assuming if you're watching this that you're probably leaning towards the old school style and you're questioning, how much magic or how to give magic, or maybe you're just curious about how to give magic, or maybe you have your own ideas and put them below, whatever you think. Because I love to hear from different people. I do think that you can. I'm going back to this 5th edition here, which is funny that I'm talking about 5th edition, which I wasn't planning on doing. I ran a long campaign, over 3 years long. They started at first level, but eventually they did in fact get some really powerful magical items when they were higher levels, and those items actually defined the characters on some level. So they did do that. It just took me understanding the system and giving them a really powerful magic item, relatively speaking, for it to really happen. They became plot points. They were part of what the player characters interacted with. It was something they defined their character by. And I think that major, we'll call them, magic items can be that. If we think of The Hobbit, right? Bilbo had that ring, and the ring defined Bilbo, right? Like the fact that he could turn invisible was huge, right? It was a major thing. So this is the kind of magic item we're looking for, something that can really change the player character. Now you might say, well, I don't want to give somebody such a powerful magic item. But remember that in an old school game, if you gave let's say a fighter, let's say you had a 2nd level fighter and you gave them plate mail armor +3, and they wore a shield and they had really high dex, they could be like negative armor class. They could, which is, if you don't know old school games, that's like crazy. That's like having 22, 23 armor class in an ascending game. They're nearly impossible to hit for a lot of things. They're super hard to hit, but they still don't have a whole lot of hit points. They also still don't have great saving throws, right? So they're not invulnerable, but the armor can help define that fighter. They can wade into a bunch of goblins with little fear of dying because of that magic item, and that's epic, right? When they get past the group of goblins and they get into the leader's chamber where he's higher hit dice, or maybe there's a goblin shaman, now they're going to throw a spell at him, and he isn't nearly as powerful as he was a minute ago. So magic items that are powerful are not a problem as long as they are not all powerful, right? But what I would say though is we want to try to give magic items that are interesting. And I did mention earlier, like giving a +1 sword is a big deal, but sure, after you give them +1 sword and then they go up a 3 levels and you give them another +1 sword and then, or a +2 sword, and what are they doing with the other one? They have a collection of it, right? That's like the old joke, right? Everybody has like 25 +1 swords. So there does need to be some kind of balance. What I would recommend is to think beyond bonuses when you go to weapons. So, for instance, a sword that sheds light, that is treated as a magic sword, so it would work against creatures that can only be hit by magic, but doesn't give any kind of bonus, right? That's really great. And that's a really simple magic item. And really, it could be made by a wizard or whatever casting, or I guess even I don't know what their little magic users, but a magic user casting a continual light. In most games, it lasts forever, right? So you cast continual light on a sword, now you've got a sword that sheds light. You can't turn it on and off. It doesn't do anything special. It just literally sheds light, which is amazing if you're playing the game the way it was kind of, I hate to say meant to be played, but with dungeon exploration and counting torches and being weary of darkness. Having a sword that is always lit up is great, right? Of course, it's going to be hard to sneak up on things with your sword drawn if it's always lit, right? And as soon as you pull it out in town and somebody sees you have this sword that's glowing, now you have a magic item, you might be a target for thieves. So there's bonuses and penalties to have different things. So it might be that the thief wants to creep along in the shadows, so they can't draw their sword. They have to draw their dagger if they want to have a weapon out because their sword glows. So, again, this is kind of one of those things where it creates story. We can create story with cool magic items. Now there are, of course, swords that you can do it like a flashlight where it gets brighter and dimmer, and that's like a more powerful version of it, right? And that's really it. And also a dispel magic will take the magic light off of a sword that just has continual light on it versus a actual magic sword that doesn't. So there's lots of ways we can give out like lesser magic items early on, but don't be afraid to give out a powerful magic item. So one way we can do this is to give out something that is very situational, so that it's not like they just defeat every combat with it. Like if you look at some of the stuff in the expert book, like the elemental summoning items, you get a bowl of summoning water elementals. It's like a 3-foot wide bowl that you've got to carry around. It takes 10 minutes to set up before you can summon this elemental. I mean, it's a process, right? They're not just going to be able to whip it out every combat. And I think you can only use it once a day. So like that's a powerful magic item that's limited, right? Or you look at something like scrolls, right? You could give a character a first level, second level magic user a scroll with like a third or fourth level spell on it, right? You could give this low level party a lightning bolt spell, let's say, on a scroll, right? And they'll have it. You could give them, potions that do various things. And again, now they've got these magic items. The world feels magical. They can use them as part of the story. It's not something they can just do on demand. They can't just go, well, I'll take a rest and now I'm healed, but I have a healing potion. This is the kind of stuff that we can do to, again, set the pace of the magic in our own campaigns. And I think that's really cool. I think the idea of controlling that, not that I'm a control freak, but controlling that helps you really kind of set up your world as you want it to be. And it's really one of the problems, I don't want to say problems, that I have with this edition. One of the reasons why I moved away from it was because I felt like the world was too magical. And in order to remove that magic, I had to make major changes with things like cantrips and so many classes having spells. It just didn't feel like what I wanted for when I was trying to run some stuff that was a little more kind of low magic, which is one of the reasons why I went more towards older systems, because I felt like I had a little more control there. So anyways, look at my little thing here. Oh, I saw that stuff. Okay, so let's talk about like items specifically. Now, I don't want to make this super long because I want to hear from you guys. I think this is really a cool conversation. What I want, I mean, I could have Googled, and I have a whole list of, in my bookmarks, I'm sure, of lists of cool magic items that people have put on blogs. But if you guys have some cool magic items that you found, or links to blogs that have lists of magic items and stuff, put them in the comments, because I would love to get a conversation going. And I would, like I said, put them in the description, but nobody ever reads the description. So put them in the comments. People read the comments. So anyways, so let's just talk a few things. Number one, I would, if you want, even if you're going to run a relatively low magic campaign, and I've said this before, I would use a lot of scrolls, both magic user and cleric spell scrolls, but also protection scrolls. Again, this is something that I'm not sure if they existed in later editions, but they definitely are a hallmark of early editions, are these protection scrolls, where you read this scroll of protection from undead, and there's like a 10-foot circle around you that the undead cannot penetrate. So your whole party can cluster together and like walk through this room of 150 skeletons, right? And think about it. That's awesome, right? You can create a room with 150 skeletons that there's no way they would be able to get through without a cool scroll, right? So this allows you to create scenes that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't give them these items. There's also I think protection from magic. There's protection from lycanthropes. So there's a bunch of different protection scrolls. But spell scrolls, of course, and don't just give them a bunch of magic missile spell scrolls. I mean, obviously you can roll randomly, which I normally do, but don't be afraid to give somebody a high level spell. I remember one of my players, Young, I think it was Young, used in a one shot. He actually used he had a magic jar scroll, and he was pretty low level, and he ended up using it to save his character. He like jumped his spirit into like a towel or something to when basically the party all died. He like ran into this room and like hid inside the towel, and it was just really epic and cool. I thought, that's like very fun and stuff you can do, right? So somewhere Young's character is in a towel in this temple. Yeah. Anyways, but sorry, but these are the things like magic jar. Commune with other plane or whatever they're called. Summoning elementals. I know I mentioned that was. Lightning bolts and fireballs and things that like they won't have access to, because I know a lot of people that play OSR games don't play super high level stuff, so they don't get to the level where they can cast 6 level spells. So give them those on scrolls, right? Give them some really really cool scrolls. So scrolls, potions, of course, and not just potions of healing. Give them potions where they can be creative with it. Gaseous form, growth. These potions where they have to think. Oh, how can I use this? Maybe they hold on to it forever until they need that one potion where it's like, oh, you know what? I can get through this place because I have this. And these are the kind of things we want to give the players something to grow with and work. And again, because they are expendable, you don't have to worry about giving too many. You can give a whole bunch of scrolls. They're going to use them. And you know what? They're also fragile. So if they don't use them, they're going to lose them, right? And you can play that up into the game. So if you get a hoarder who's got like 20 potions on them, fall down a pit. Could be a problem, right? I'm not saying to put a pit there to smash the potions, but I'm saying if they do fall down, consider that, right? Normally, if somebody's carrying 1 or 2 potions, I'm not going to make them save, against the potions for falling in a pit trap. But if they're carrying 30, so let's be reasonable here. So other things that are really cool, any miscellaneous magic items, elven cloak and boots, rings of various things, they're just so cool, right? All these miscellaneous items that just allow you to do stuff. These are the items that we want to give. Now, again, you can give weapons, and especially specialty weapons can be cool. One thing that BX does is they have a lot of swords that are, well, first of all, it's intelligent swords too, which is a whole lot. Maybe I'll do it. Tell me if you want me to do a video about intelligent swords, because I feel like I could rattle on for too long to really get into that. So we're going to avoid that for right now. But intelligent swords that powers, but also you've got your swords that are +1, +3 versus underwater creatures, that kind of stuff. Specialty swords are great. Right? They could even be weapons that are given to the party for quests that they should return after. Like, okay, you're going to fight the giants. Well, here's a sword that is, +1, +3 versus giants. It's the giant slayer sword, and you mix up some history with it or whatever. And this is like a prized possession. And then, of course, they'll give it back at the end, so you don't have to worry about them having a million swords. But another cool thing, and I actually discovered this when I was playing 5th edition, and I used it for that campaign a lot. So I'm going to actually show you guys here. I can get over here to my screen. Okay. That should be me. Oop, yep. Okay. All right. This is on Donjon. I go here a lot. You guys have seen me use Donjon before. This is under the 5th edition, but of course, you can use it for any edition. They have it. It's under the random generator under ciphers. They have magic items and tomes and stuff, which can be really cool as well. Weird magic items, trinkets, but ciphers are really interesting because they are single-use magic items. And again, you can, like, here's Dragon's Tooth smeared with crimson blood, so it's interesting, right? When held and activated, the cipher conjures a bolt of lightning, and it has the, it says dex save, but you would just do Dragon Breath or spell or whatever. A slender spindle of white crystal containing a drop of golden ichor. When impaled into the flesh, the cipher dissolves and turns you into a vampire. Boy, that could be a curse, right? A jagged shard of topaz on a leather cord. When held and activated, the cipher allows you to fly. And again, it says it's until you take a long rest, but you can just change that for your system. So this is it, right? There are all these cool little items, these cool little things that that you can find that basically are single use. And I think I mean, I think this comes from Numenera. I'm pretty sure, like, this idea, or the Cypher system. And the idea in Numenera is you can only carry so many of them, or it could actually cause problems. So you could do that. I think I did actually do that when I was running it. They could only have 3 at a time, and if they carried more, there was a chance they would just go off. So if you don't want people, again, you don't want them to hoard them. But it all comes down to, again, they were hoarding them in 5th edition because they all had 17 spells and all this other crap. In an OSR game where people don't have stuff, they're going to use this right away. You know, a lightning bolt that you can throw that causes 2d6 damage is going to help the party. You know, or being able to fly. I mean, you'll use these up really quickly. So don't be afraid of giving magic items to the party, even if they are powerful, because if they are low level, they're basically, you know, as people say, they're going to be like a glass cannon, right? So you give this 2nd level magic user a scroll with a high level spell, but that doesn't make, you know, they give them a wall of fire or something, right? They're still going to die if they get hit by an arrow. You know, it's like they're not like it makes them invulnerable. So you need to, you know, you need to of course they need to understand that, but it doesn't hurt to do that, you know. And it's a very classic trope in pulp fantasy where, like, some kind of regular person gets something that's very powerful, and usually it doesn't last forever. So there you go. What do you guys think? Do you give out a lot of disposable magic items? Do you think that you know, have you run into a problem where you had too many magic items in the campaign? Let me know what you think about magic items, and if you are interested in a video just about sentient swords. Did I say sentient earlier? Sentient would be different. That's a different concept. Sentient swords, intelligent swords. If you're interested in that kind of idea, let me know, because that's a really cool subject, I think, but it might be too focused. Also, if you have not already, go ahead, subscribe, ring the bell, and I do have the other channel where I do the actual plays. I'll put a link to that in the description if you guys like to watch actual plays. And until next time, we'll see you.